All right, we're here with Joseph Craig, who is the director of the book program at the Association of the United States Army. And we're really excited to have you joining us for this, being a part of this America 250 Design Challenge that we're going to be launching this school year, 2025, 2026. Part of this program, part of this design challenge is we're connecting students to different career pathways, but we're also having them work through multiple performance tasks to complete this design challenge. And one of them will be to write a short children's, I don't want to say children's book, but a short story on a Medal of Honor recipient that they are selecting, or if they're in the older categories, a graphic novel. And so, who better than to have you here who literally does this work? You home in on Medal of Honor recipients specifically for the Army, but clearly there are other recipients from other branches of service. But I just wanted to ask you a few questions and just have you talk a little bit about your career and some of the other guests that we've had on for this to talk about their careers. They've all said, it wasn't just their first, this wasn't their first, I don't say their first choice, but they didn't see themselves wandering down the career path that they're on right now. And so I just wanted to ask you first off too, how did you start? Clearly you are the book director of these graphic novels, of this program. But how did you start? Was it here? Was it somewhere else? What was your pathway to get to this point?
Well, my career has been in publishing. So it's been for a long time. I worked for a company that actually had professional book clubs. So it's kind of like Book of the Month Club, a lot of people have heard, but there were also sister clubs that specialized in different categories. So for many years, I ran the history book club and the military book club, among others. So I've always loved, history. I've always loved military history. And then a few years ago, the Association of the United States Army was looking for someone to run their book program. So the book program, it's essentially set up. It's part of our educational mission. It's to help get books out there to the American public that are about the Army or of value to the Army. So we publish in cooperation with several different publishers. Biographies, military histories, books on leadership, things like that. And then when I started, the head of the organization had an idea that he wanted to start a graphic novel series, specifically to reach out to a younger generation, to help teach them about Army history and Army values. It's a fantastic idea, so we looked into it, and we talked to some young soldiers, men and women who love comic books and graphic novels, and they all agreed that the Medal of Honor recipients would be, was their most popular idea. They loved the idea of doing a series on those recipients. So we tested the series with an issue on Alvin York. At the time, it was the 100th anniversary of the end of the of World War One. It was the 100th anniversary of Alvin York's exploits, which were recognized by the Medal of Honor, and it got a great reception. So we went from there. We rolled out the series. And at this point, we are regularly publishing 4 issues a year. They all profile, as you say, Army recipients of the Medal of Honor. We release the books digitally at first, and then once a year, in conjunction with our annual meeting in the fall, we print paperback collections. So it's been a fantastic way to, tell these stories. Luckily, there's, a huge amount of great stories, to pluck from, and it's been a lot of fun working on this project and helping get these stories out to a new generation, as we said.
Yeah. So it sounds like you probably do a lot of collaboration with those currently serving, maybe to get some of their feedback, but then collaboration on those actually working on the graphic novels themselves. Is this correct?
That's right. Yeah. So the creative team, these are professionals drawn from the comic book industry. So we hire them as freelance, creative consultants to write the script, to do the pencil and ink artwork. Another artist comes in to do the colors. There's a stage called lettering where you're putting in the captions and dialogue. So this is the same process that regular graphic novels, regular books that are going out to the comic book stores. So we learned, I learned personally about that process, which was interesting. And since these are all comic book professionals, they really know how to tell the story. It's fantastic the way they bring it to light. And then we want to make sure we're getting the details all right because these stories need no embellishment. They're wonderful stories. So we also work with professional historians and biographers, uh, people in the Army historians, to make sure we're getting everything correct. It's that the uniforms, the weapons, details from their lives. We want to make sure that we're presenting the story accurately. Uh, and it's been a wonderful thing to work in collaboration with all these wonderful professionals.
I'm so glad you're touching on this because, collaboration is key, right? It's so very important. We're going to have students working on this in teams, this design challenge. But, bring in all those different skills. Some students may be better writers than others. Some students may have a great illustration skill set. I think it's so very important that you're touching on this, and it takes a lot of people to create the products that you say. When we have students that come into our center, I always poll our students and I ask them, how many of you have ever been sitting in social studies class and you ever thought to yourself, gosh, why do we have to learn about all these people from the past? Like, I don't know them. I don't feel like it's relevant. And maybe I'm making up this percentage, but it's usually like 95+% that are raising their hands that they just don't like history. They just don't like social studies. But it's very clear that this is such a cool to do graphic novels. I mean, kids get into those things. To be a part of this, like, I don't think students recognize that, yeah, you kind of got to know the history to be able to do this. That uniform, as you just mentioned, that one button that isn't supposed to be there, someone's going to notice it. That one pen over here, someone is going to notice it. That's why it's so very important. Students think, history, I'm never going to use this. It's very clear it takes historians to be able to pull these graphic novels off, but it also takes, I would say, illustrators and those who are actually sketching these out to have an idea and an understanding too. So they're still looking back at the history. They're looking back at some of those colors. They're looking back at some of that. So history is everywhere, and I really want students to understand this. It can be fun, and you can bring it to light in different ways. And you guys clearly are doing that through your graphic novels. But I want students to recognize this as they take this design challenge on. It does take collaboration, and one student may be better at something else than another, and that's fine, but you're working together as a team to do this. And as you said, it's so very important to really know the history of it, to be able to do this accurately and to represent these people, to represent them accurately, right? You mentioned not embellishing the stories. These stories are grand as they are. I mean, they're Medal of Honor recipient stories. So very important. What advice would you give to students as they begin working on this particular project? We try to follow the GRASS model with this to where they are going to be pitching this to an audience. Who's their audience? I would love for you to be our audience, for someone on your team to be our audience. I'd love for maybe one day to maybe see one of their recipients that they want highlighted worked through your team. But what advice would you give to students, to these student teams that are going to be tackling this particular project, this performance task?
Well, collaboration, as you mentioned, is key. I mean, no one person is going to have all the skills necessary to do a fantastic job. So you rely on the skills of other people. You work together and create something that's better than the sum of the parts. You want to focus on the story. Um, you know, we do want to make sure that we're getting all the details right, but it really is the story that draws people in. So focus on that story arc. Have a beginning, middle, and end to the story. With the graphic novels that we're doing on the Medal of Honor recipients, I mean, we're fortunate to have like kind of the core of the story is already set with the official citations. So we use that, and then we kind of fill out the story with some biographical details. Uh, but these are self-contained, wonderful stories. So tell a good story, invite readers in. Uh, you know, you do want to help check on the details, but that's just to prevent any stumbling blocks. You don't want you want to keep people immersed in the story, and yeah, and have fun. I mean, it's been a joy for me, learning more about these recipients. Their amazing stories. You know, no matter how much I think I might know about military history, I'm always learning more. So it's been exciting for that.
Yeah. Um, how many of these has your team put out so far?
Well, we do 4 a year, so we're in the midst of volume 7. So we just released, so we have 24 are out. We had the 25th came out earlier this year, and we're set this summer to release a few more editions, and so we'll have 28 by the end of this year.
Oh, fantastic. And now I assume you already have they're in your queue, which ones are going to be focusing on next. Are there certain ones that, that maybe haven't received a lot of light just yet that maybe our students could tackle with this performance task and maybe try to win you over? um, what can they do?
Yeah, I
How
mean
can they pitch this? I want them to also, not only are our students going to hear be doing these, creating their own short graphic novel for this, but I want them to kind of take on like, no, I need to be able to pitch this as well. I want them to be able to present. This is why we think this should be a good next graphic novel.
Sure. We, with the Medal of Honor series, we are covering all the different time periods. So conflicts starting from the Civil War when the Medal of Honor was instituted, up through the modern wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we have lots of stories to cover. Within each year that we're putting out new stories, we like to, have a nice variety from different conflicts. So, we're not all concentrating on one particular time period. And in terms of what stories students might want to focus on, find something that resonates with you. I mean, if there's a story that you find interesting for some reason, there's something that hooks your interest, it's probably going to hook other people as well. So, for the series we've done so far, we're looking for those kind of fun details or interesting details that really grab someone. Last year we did one on Hiroshi Miyamura. His Medal of Honor was kept top secret when it was first awarded. He was from the Korean War. He was actually a prisoner of war at the time. So officials were afraid that if the story got out, that the people might take retribution on him while he was still a prisoner. Uh, Stories like the one on Mary Walker, the only female recipient. That's those type of things where there's something different about the story. It's natural to catch people's interest with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm hoping at least one or two groups will latch on to Captain Larry Taylor, who's from right here in Chattanooga. I think that'll be a great one. So, uh, no pressure, kids. No pressure. No
I know you've got
pressure.
the new brand new exhibit set up, so
Yeah, we're
I saw
excited
some
about it.
preliminary photos. It looks fantastic.
Just a good addition to our gallery. It just brings out so many more of the stories in just a lifelike way. And we love when kids come in. I love when students come in and I say, we have a real horse in our gallery. We have a man parachuting from the ceiling. We've got a wooded theater. We now have a Cobra helicopter hanging from the ceiling. They're just big Google eyes. And I said, guys, history can be fun. Let's go. So it just kind of
Absolutely.
sets the stage for fun things for the kids. So these students are clearly going to be working in teams. There's going to need to be a lot of project management going on with this. Hopefully our teacher sponsors will be stepping in to help some too. But students need to learn to work together and to work on their own projects and to think through the time management of it and understand that some students they all have different skill sets. Some may be better at something else. And, there's always some students that, they may seem as if they're giving effort, but others in the group may not see them as giving effort. So how can you speak to how can students tackle this project in a way to where they're cognizant of their time and they're kind of looking at it through a project management lens, I guess, if you will.
Sure. The key is making best use of everyone's different skills. As you say, everyone has a different skill set. So if someone's more artistically inclined, obviously want to have them work on the illustrations. If someone's a better writer, they might work on the script. It's also key to pick someone who's going to be kind of the producer or manager, who's making the final decisions, who's uh, you know allotting these different responsibilities based on people's skills. So you know people should, you do need to have a collaborative effort, but you also need to have one person to make the final decision on what the final product's going to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Just great. I will say, we now are using Jacob Parrott. I've pushed him in our before your visit. So for teachers that are using these for trying to promote it for lessons. So I've got a lesson that I do have a teacher fellow that's
You're kind
actually,
of cutting out.
oh, it's cutting out a little
Your
bit.
question
Look,
was cutting out for me.
how about now? Can you hear me now? Is that a
Uh,
little bit better
yeah,
or?
I got most of it, but just a
Oof.
couple.
Oh no.
Okay, here.
Well, Luke's
Got
gonna
one
tinker
idea
just for
real
a
quick.
second, but I'll keep talking. How about now? Can you still hear me though?
Okay, I get most of it, so I think we'll be
Ah,
okay.
he's got most of it. I'm hoping that teachers clearly start using more of these in their classrooms where they can. We do have one teacher fellow who is using, I forget exactly which one. Oh, drawing a blank on the top at the moment. But he's a World War II Japanese American Medal of Honor recipient, and she's using that in her lesson that she's crafting this year. Our teacher fellows write lessons, so we're trying to promote it on our end to where we can bring that in, different sources in for teachers to use in their classrooms, and get you guys some more traction on your website and to those novels, because I mean clearly a lot of time and effort's go into this, and they're just such good stories, and so students should be exposed to this. And that's what I really like about these design challenges that we push out from our center is that yes, there's history involved, but it doesn't just it's not just for those history teachers. Any teacher, any content level, any grade level can be a part of our design challenges. Any content area can be a part of our design challenges. We've had theater teachers take these challenges on. We've had STEM teachers. We've had history teachers, English teachers. So we want to engage as many teachers in this project as possible. And clearly, by including these graphic novels and the little short stories that we're going to include as performance tasks, it's going to bring in those other teachers. So we're really excited about this project, this design challenge, and I really appreciate you taking out some time to talk to us about this today. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to include in this as well?
Well, one, you mentioned that different teachers are using this as a tool within their classrooms. That is great. I mean, that's exactly what we want to hear. That's exactly what our aim was for the project. So we'd love to hear that. What's nice is that these graphic novels are available to anyone who wants to take a look at them. They can just go to ausa.org/MOH for Medal of Honor. So ausa.org/MOH. And it's got our full list there. So people can look at, they can read them online. They can download a PDF. So they have access to all these great stories. Uh, stories like the Daniel Inouye maybe might be the one that you were referring
Yeah,
to
yes,
from
that
World
is
War
him.
II.
Yeah.
He went on to become a senator. His story, which I didn't really know, I knew only about his political career. It's quite remarkable. Uh, you know, he was struck in the arm with a rifle grenade, and it disabled his arm. So he actually had to pull the pin. So he had to get rid of it with his left hand before uh, things got worse for him. These stories are just so full of bravery, resilience. One thing that's so common with all these recipients is that they are very humble people. They always say, I'm just doing my job. I was just trying to protect my fellow guys. I was doing, what I was doing, anyone else would have done. And we all know that's not the case, but that's their attitude going into it. Uh, so we're just really excited to do our small part to help, you know, shine a spotlight on those stories and their remarkable histories.
Yeah, and it's such a great way to also, you know, expose students to those character values, right, that are associated with the Medal of Honor: courage, commitment, citizenship, patriotism, integrity, and sacrifice. Their stories exemplify all of those. And so it's just a great way for kids to see that these ordinary people, they're put in those extraordinary situations and they can still take one more step forward. And what does that look like, that one more step forward? We love sharing these stories with students, and we want them to consider how they themselves, when they think it's their worst day, as many Medal of Honor recipients have said, the day of their action is the worst day of their life. When students think it's their worst day, what threads can we pull from those stories, those visuals, to take that one more step forward? when it's their worst day. So thanks so much for just bringing in and I say bringing in, but exposing students to these stories through such a creative way through graphic novels. I think it certainly reaches more students than if it was just a regular textbook, for sure. All right, so these graphic novels are clearly history, right? They're stories of people from the past or still living, some still living, maybe some not. But they're stories of actions from the past. And so, how are you able and your team able, how are they able to bring these stories to life in a creative way, despite it just being what students would consider, oh, that's just history?
Well, there's a couple ways where creativity comes into the projects. One is you know, kind of filling in the gaps. I mean, we base these stories on the official citation and other, official records, but those records don't tell, all the details. So you have to use your knowledge of Army history and general history and just make sometimes educated guesses. Uh, that's where working with these professional historians comes into play because they can help guide you through that process and let you know, are these educated guesses really good ones or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then even more importantly, the creative aspect comes through the fact that this is a visual medium. uh, you know Comics, graphic novels want to tell the story visually. The kind of the ideal graphic novel might have no words at all. You're just telling the story through pictures. And then when you do, obviously that's a little difficult. So we do have captions and dialogue, but there's limited space. So you have to really boil the story down to its essential elements. So how do you get across this information to the reader in a way that tells the story and engages them while sticking to the space constraints that you have, for the book? That's a really interesting challenge, and I hope your school children will find that as exciting as I do and rise to the occasion.
Oh, fantastic. As you were saying this, I had another question. So your team, you mentioned, you may have some doing sketches, some doing coloring and story. These students who will be taking on this performance task may have never even thought about starting on a graphic novel. What are some, I guess, launch points that you could give students as they begin this project? Should they identify the illustrator? Should they do this? Should they at least maybe have a template of sorts to start with? And I plan on supplying a template to them. So I guess we could cut that out when you get to that point. But is there kind of a process that your team works through? I don't want to say step by step, but maybe some broad steps, some steps that students can start with that can kind of walk them through this process.
Well, the first step is really finding someone that you're excited to work, tell the story about. If you're excited, if you're jazzed to tell this story, that's going to come through, and people will also be excited to read this story. And then it really starts with the script. You have to. Uh, the script is kind of like a screenplay, but for books, so you're going page by page, panel by panel, describing what's in the panel visually, and then adding any captions or dialogue. So you have to, you get to pick out how you're going to present each panel. So for what we do is, as I said, we kind of use the citation as the core of the story. So like what's the information that's being relayed in the citation. That's going to be some of your big points within the story. And then so you have to kind of plot out over the course of the book. We ours are very short. They're only 8 pages each graphic novel. So you have to leave a lot out. So so you got to figure out how are we going to tell this story, get all the important things in within 8 pages. So you kind of plot out over the course of the 8 pages where your highlights going to be, where the big moments that you're going to want to have a little extra room to have a beautiful illustration there or an exciting illustration there. And then you work through that, and then we send that script out to other people to check the details, make sure we're getting them right, and then we hand it over to the illustrators to start their work. And it's a really fun and exciting thing to do.
Well, thanks for sharing these stories with students in such a creative way. They're Medal of Honor recipient stories, but they're not just Medal of Honor recipient stories. They're the stories of us as Americans. And with this being America 250, it's really it's a great time to really highlight these individuals who have just sacrificed so much for all of our freedoms, and we're really excited to expose students to this challenge. So thanks again for joining us, and we're really looking forward to this.
Thank you. It's been my honor and I appreciate the time to speak with you about the program.
All right. Well, thanks so much.